Hey guys, it's Brio. I'm making this video today about truth. The reason I'm making a video about truth is because I think there's a certain element of truth that doesn't get really discussed a lot, especially in the church. And I think there's a big reason a lot of young people, young men especially, leave the church is because this doesn't get emphasized enough. And I believe that a lot of the reason of Jordan Peterson's rise to fame and him getting a lot of people like myself, atheists, agnostic people, much more interested in the Bible or religion itself. In my case, I'm really into comparative mythology, is because of this element of truth. And so this video is mainly aimed at people who listen to Jordan Peterson and I guess Christians, because it's sort of an idea I'm working out, and I'd love to hear other people's opinions on it. If you disagree with me, or if you think I'm saying what is wrong, or I think elements I've got are right, but some is wrong. It's a part of truth I'm trying to explore. And another reason it's so interesting to me is, Jordan Peterson describes the highest virtues being sort of archetypally represented in Christ is truth in the service of love. And so understanding truth and love has sort of led me down this rabbit hole, which is much bigger and deeper than I thought it would be. So I'm going to be exploring, a part of truth in this. So the part of truth that I'm exploring is, it's not true speech, logos, which is normally what we talk about when we talk about truth, but rather true aim. So the Greeks' origin of the word sin came from the word hamartia, which means it's an archery term, to miss the mark. And I'm not sure if it's called to have true aim, to hit the mark, but in this case I'm going to explain to hit the mark is to be true, and this is sort of the truth I'm talking about, and to miss the mark is to sin. Although we don't use sin in sort of that context, we use sin as more as a moral miss or moral failing, whereas if you're doing archery, it's not a moral failing to miss the mark. It's just a mistake. So in this case, the sin's more like mistake. But and so Jordan Peterson describes this as this analogy of the bow and arrow trying to hit the mark or goal as sort of a encapsulation of how we act in the world and how we see the world and how we move through it. So an example would be, let's just say you're pursuing truth in the service of love. So maybe you're trying to start a business that you think will help the world, and also the business will possibly give you money to support the family that you love, and you have a product that it's not just a product you're using to make money, you have a product that you really think will help and make the world a better place. You might go on to that super confident, and then as you go and you do this new thing you've never done before, start a business, you run into all these problems that you never really considered. Things start to stuff up and you fail, and the business sort of ends. And that's sort of the same as drawing the bow and shooting the arrow and missing the mark. That's that hamartia, that sin, but not sin as we see it. And so basically what you can do again is you're okay, go back, think about, I thought it was much smarter than I thought it was. I didn't consider this, this, and this, and this. All these problems arose that I didn't consider. Okay, now I'm going to go again with this knowledge and try and improve and make this business again. And so you try, and maybe you succeed, or maybe you fail. But maybe you fail just a little less than last time. So it's sort of you hamartia, you miss the mark, but you miss the mark a little less. And it's sort of this going back, forth, until you eventually hit the mark in the middle. And so I think there's a part of our being that really responds to that. this true aim, this competence that we look up to. Like I'll use the example of basketball. It's sort of similar to that bow and arrow analogy. Like you have a hoop and you have a ball and you're trying to get the ball in the hoop. And when you start off, maybe you can only get 10% of your shots in. Let's say at the 3-point line, you can only get 10% of your shots in. You practice. Eventually you get 15% of your shots in, 20, 30, 40. Then you go different parts of the court, and you can start getting shots in. Then you add the element of someone in front of you defending against you. And the complexity increases, but then your skill sort of comes up to match it. The complexity increases, the skill comes up to match it. Then you have the full game of basketball where you face off against other teams, and this team's better than you, but then your team comes better than them, and then a new team comes along and they're better than you, and then you come. And because basketball is such a huge, widely popular sport, where everyone sort of something drawing people in their beings to try and get to the top of that basketball hierarchy, you just get this evolution of teams facing off against each other, sort of battling for that top spot. And what emerges at the top is people like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and even someone who doesn't follow basketball ever, like I've never seen a basketball game in my life, knows who these people are, because there's so much awe created around the fact that they got to the top of such a impossible hierarchy. And what I would say is these players are like the most true players, because they're able to overcome the most amount of complexity and figure out a way to consistently win the basketball games, consistently sort of hit that mark of getting the ball in the hoop more times and be able to defend the ball getting to their hoop like the most amount of times to win the most amount of games and achieve this like legendary status. And I think there's something, the reason these people are so popular, the reason someone like me who doesn't play basketball knows about these people, is because there's something in the human psyche that pays attention to that high level of skill and competence and true aim. And a part of that admiration and attention is used for our in our imitation systems. We pay attention to things we want to imitate. So we see these sort of like Kobe Bryant type figures, and we watch them so we can emulate them and take their characteristics onto our own life to become more Kobe-like. And I think that's sort of what's described, and maybe Christians will disagree with this, is what it's to become more Christ-like, is to pursue, watch how Christ acted and stuff, and sort of try and emulate those characters and qualities. And I think that's the same thing we're doing with Kobe. And because Kobe is, he's passed away now, but because he was so good at hitting that mark, being so competent, having that true aim, I think there's a part of him, what draws our attention to him, that is Christ-like, and people may call that heresy. But I think there's a part of him that's true and that engages us. And I think a lot of young men respond to that. I think they really want to see how much complexity they can handle, how high on the hierarchy they can come, how big of a burden they can bear. And I think what Jordan Peterson has done is he's taken that sort of Christian truth of competence and true aim, and sort of re-explained it in a way that these young men who were previously may have been pursuing whatever sport or maybe League of Legends or video game, like to dedicating their lives to kind of the top of the hierarchy. He's just taken that and he said, hey, this is a good thing to do, and this is what's explained in the Bible, and that you should actively pursue this, and that's actually a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Which I guess maybe isn't, I don't know, Christian, because I was raised Pentecostal, and a lot of the idea is that Christ has sort of taken all the burden onto himself, so you don't have to really worry about him, just love him and he will take care of everything. And I feel like that takes away from that sort of pursuit of competence and true aim. At least that's how I felt, and maybe it's different in other churches. But yeah, it shows young men that sort of deep down part of them is sort of activated, and it takes that pursuit, and maybe the pursuit was done for, it could be done for love or competition, but maybe it was done for like wanting status or something like that. It takes that and it directs it to that truth in the service of love, and it shows them, okay, you can go out and you can get a good career and you can make the world a better place and see how much good you can do in the world, like, and then pursue that like Kobe Bryant pursues becoming the best basketball player. Of course, he doesn't anymore because he's passed away, but yeah, and I think that's a really compelling message to especially young men, and I think it doesn't get talked a lot in Christian circles. Maybe it does. You can disagree with me with that. So yeah, please leave your comments below, and I would love to discuss this more. I'm trying to figure these ideas of truth in the service of love out, and yeah, please like and subscribe, and I'll make more videos like this in the future. Thanks for watching.